The Wizards of Once is set 3,000 years ago at a time when magic really existed. So it's a world full of giants and sprites and these little hairy fairies, which are very sweet. They're so small they can fit on top of your finger. And there are werewolves and wonderful magical creatures. And there are two tribes living in this world. One tribe are the wizards, and they have a magic and and the other tribe are the warriors, and the warriors are trying to get rid of all the magic. And so these two tribes are at war, and my two heroes are from these two different tribes that are at war. So they've been brought up since birth to hate each other like poison. Tsar is a wizard boy, and he has no magic, but he'll do anything to get it, because wizards aren't born with magic. The magic comes in when they're about 13, and Tsar hasn't got any magic, and so he'll do anything to get it. And Tsar's not the kind of boy, I love Tsar. He's the kind of kid who acts first and thinks later. He means well, but he's always getting into trouble. So in the first book, he decides he's going to catch a witch to take its magic and use it for himself. And you can see what a bad idea that is. And Wish is a warrior, but she has this magical secret. And warriors really aren't supposed to be magic, but she has a magical secret. In case you haven't read book one, I don't want to tell you what the magical secret is. When I'm starting to create a whole new world, it takes loads of work, because you've got to make it feel like that world really exists. I started with an idea of something that I really would love to be true. When I was a kid, I really wanted to be magic. Yeah, and I often go into schools and say, who here would really like to be magic? And every kid and all the teachers stick up their hands and say they would like to be magic. So I started with that idea. And then I grew up in Potley. Well, my grandmother grew up in Sussex, and so that landscape was full of magic. It felt like it was full of magic because there were all these Iron Age hill forts, which there were legends about, that they were so big, these forts, they must have been built by giants. And then there were these amazing woods with 3,000-year-old trees, where I used to imagine all the fairies used to live. So I was inspired by that, and I did a lot of research into, because people throughout the ages have believed in fairies and giants, and so I did loads of research into different types of, it's fun, loads of research into different types of fairy tales and different giants and really extraordinary other creatures. Like, I found out there was a creature called a grey anise, which was a witch with really long talons, you see. And so that kind of research gave me the idea for how my witches might look. So I do, I come up with ideas, and then I do loads of research to make you feel that my magical world is really true. I was very sad about leaving the How to Train Your Dragon world, which was 12 books, and I loved the characters and I wanted to be the characters, but things have to come to an end. And the saddest thing, I suppose, that I had about leaving that world was that I really didn't think that I could put dragons in the wizard's world, even though they would have fitted in, because I got so many dragons in the dragon's world that I couldn't put the dragons in. It's incredibly important to me, the message, which is really hardwired into these books, about learning to see things from other people's points of view, because that is what I think books do better than anything else. In a film, I love films and telly, but in a film and telly, it happens out there. In a book, it's happening inside your head. You are that character, yeah? Great quote. It's like, this is from To Kill a Mockingbird, it's like walking around in somebody else's skin. That's what a book can do. So I want children to read books with the same pleasure that I read them, as well as watch filming and telly. So right from the beginning, in this book, it's so important that Wish and Tsar are from different tribes, yeah, that are fighting but they're meeting and learning to see things from each other's point of view. And that was right at the heart of what I wanted these books to be doing. Yeah. I do take on really big, weighty themes. I have always believed that children are incredibly intelligent. You don't need to dumb down for children in any way whatsoever. In anything, they're more intelligent than adults, and they're more creative because they don't necessarily know what the rules are yet. Yeah, so I never dumb down. So I do take huge themes, important themes, but I try and treat them in a very light way so that you don't feel like you're being lectured or somebody's telling you what to think. I'm just trying to get you to think about these things because children are interested in these things. Children are interested in the most important things in life. We have a lot to learn from children, actually. They're interested in heroism, standing up to bullies, looking after the environment. All of these themes children are engaged in and want to read about. So I write about these things, but I try and write about them in a light, humorous, enjoyable way in the context of the adventure story. But all the themes are there because children are the cleverest people in the world, in my opinion. I absolutely believe that children's books, and this is one of the reasons that I write for children, I think that children's books have the power to change individuals and therefore change their impact on the world. I'm trying to write so that children can start to question, to think, what is my place in the world and how can I do good? Or I'm trying to bring out things in children like their natural creativity. Children are the most creative people in the world because they don't know what the rules are yet. I'm going to quote Einstein, very clever man. Knowledge is limited, imagination encircles the world. Yeah? If you want your children to be intelligent, read them fairy stories. If you want them to be more intelligent, this is Einstein again, read them more fairy stories. Yeah? It's creativity. Children, Einstein again, Einstein, he said, no problem can be solved with the same mindset that created it. Yeah? Children don't know the rules. They can create impossible things, and we're relying on these children. Yeah, the world is in rather a difficult state. So we need creative, empathetic politicians. We need creative scientists like Einstein who can think outside the box, who can be creative, who can come up with solutions that we don't know what they are yet. This is what children can do. They are the future. That's why I write for children. That's why I'm trying to get them to think in imaginative and clever ways. That's why I use interesting language, because language is the pathway of thought. Yeah, and if you create interesting pathways of thought, children start thinking and more creatively. That's a very interesting question. The books, I suppose, that had such an impact on me, so many of them. I am going to pick out Wizard of Earthsea because that is a book that directly influenced Wizards of Once very much. I love that book. And Jed unleashes this, I don't want to spoil it, but he unleashes this shadow that eventually he discovers actually comes from inside himself. And something like that made a profound impact. I found that very interesting. Or something like The Lorax. This is a book for a picture book, which had a massive impact on me and influenced how I think about it. My father was an environmentalist anyway, but the simple words in that, I am a lorax, I sleep feet for the trees, the truffle of trees, the Wurzler comes down and chops all the trees down, and at the end he sends down this seed, to the little boy at the end and says, this is the last truffler seed of all, and nothing's going to change unless somebody like you cares. Unless, one word, unless. It's a picture book, but it made me think about the environment and nature and what's our responsibility to it. And books have such power, and they they made me, To Kill a Mockingbird. I think I read that book when I was about 12 or 13. Made me think, what is it like to be somebody else? It made me think about another world I didn't really know about. I mean, books have such power to shape and change you in the way you think about things. I'm choosing very different books here, or something like Pippi Longstocking, for instance, which was a book I loved, gave me a girl hero protagonist that I wanted to see. I didn't get that from a lot of other books when I was growing up. Pippi was so strong. She could lift a horse above her head. She was this strong woman. She was cheeky to authority. Books shape you. I always find favourites questions so difficult. And I guess I've got to say here, my favourite characters are Tsar and Wish. I'm going to choose both. Because Tsar, and I love them for very different reasons. Tsar tries to, he means well, but he's always getting into trouble, and he has a lot to learn. But I love his confidence, his cheekiness. He is very creative. Wish, they have a lot to teach each other, actually, these two characters, and they will through the course of the series. Wish I love for very different reasons. She's probably my favourite character in the same way that Hiccup is my favourite character in the Dragon books, and it's because she has such belief in the goodness of other people, and that sweetness. She's not as confident as Tsar, and that is something that she needs to learn through the course of the books. But her moral sense, her sense of what is right, and her belief in the goodness in other people is often what brings out the best in others. And so I love her character. And she's just a very sweet, loving character. So she's probably my favourite. I put bits of myself in all of the characters, so it's hard to see. I think Kamikaze, who's from How to Train Your Dragon, I have a lot in common with her because I'm very chatty and very. Wish I have quite a bit in common with, because I wasn't dyslexic as a child. Wish is dyslexic, but I really struggled with handwriting and organisation, and so I'm very empathetic to that aspect of Wish. My family say I'm most like fish legs. I have no idea why. I don't know why that is. But you put bits of yourself into a lot of the characters. For instance, I'm not that like Hiccup, but Hiccup's relationship with his father is very much like my relationship with my father. And Wish's relationship with her mother maybe slightly like my relationship with my mother. You have to put in these true things, because then they feel true to the person who's reading them. There was a wonderful book that I read as a kid growing up called The Treasure Seekers by E. Nesbit, in which it was narrated by a character who you didn't know who they were, who didn't say, it was one of the children, but you didn't know who they were. And the character, but you guessed, because the narrator kept on saying, Oswald, who was the bravest and the cleverest and the best of the children. So you thought, maybe he's the narrator, yeah. I love that. I love that idea of a narrator who you don't know who they are, and it keeps you guessing. So I put a narrator, you don't know who the narrator is, but I don't tell you at the end of book 2 who it is, because I want you to keep guessing. And I go into schools and kids always guess somebody different. Oh, maybe it's Wish, maybe it's Caliban, maybe it's I've had pretty much everybody. So I'm keeping everybody guessing as to who it is, and I'll tell you right at the end of the last bit. The illustrations are incredibly important to Wizards of Wands and to How to Train Your Dragon. I love books that are for older kids, that are exciting, but still have loads of illustration. Why can't you have illustrations in books for older people? I just don't understand it. So it's really important to me that they have all these illustrations, and I like to think I'm getting better at the illustrating. I'm not a natural. It's funny. I used to draw Snoopy as a kid, but I used to get so frustrated because I couldn't get the Snoopy in the picture to look like the real Snoopy, and I used to think, oh no, it means I'm not going to be an illustrator one day. Didn't mean that. It meant I was only 9. Okay, don't forget you're only 9 or whatever age you are. So don't expect to be immediately brilliant at this stuff. Some people are. Somebody like, I don't know if you've ever seen Chris Riddell illustrating, but it's like magic. He has an idea in his head about how something's going to look, and he can just do it just like that. I was not like that. Not all illustrators are like that, and I want you to know that I have to get a pitch. I do have to do research, and I have to practice, and I have to I just haven't got a very good visual memory for stuff. So sometimes you have to work at stuff. I went to art school for 3 years to learn this stuff. So don't worry if you're having to use research, you're having to copy something in order to get the illustration right. You can do that. Oh, I would have loved to know that I would be an author one day, because I loved writing and I love reading. I would have loved to have been an author, but my handwriting and my spelling was terrible. And for some reason I thought that was what was going to make you be an author. I don't know why. At the end of the day, kids, it's not about your handwriting and spelling. It's about your ideas. And so I don't want a kid who has difficulty with the mechanics of reading or the mechanics of writing to think that's what being a writer is about. I don't want a really imaginative kid to be put off. It's about your ideas at the end of the day.